Tonight, a house fire hero who saved 4 lives is honored by the Saskatoon Fire Department. Also, a Saskatchewan man says use of a full-body restraint while in youth detention left him broken. We have an in-depth look at the controversial restraint known as the wrap. Plus, 30 years ago, a human rights victory for the LGBTQS+ community. We check in with people who were part of the fight.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, June 23rd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The Saskatoon Fire Department is honoring a hometown hero today. Joe Madden was working the night shift last fall. He stopped at a 7-Eleven to pick up a drink. Driving away, he spotted a house on fire. Dan Zakreski has more.
Joe Madden had his big gulp. He could have kept on driving, but he didn't. He stopped, and that's when adrenaline and his training kicked in. It was just after 1 a.m. back in November when Madden spotted the flames on the outside of this house. There were no sirens and no firefighters or police on scene. The veteran commissioner jumped out of his car and started pounding on the door. He got the upstairs tenants out to safety.
I asked him if there were still people in the basement, and he said yeah. So I said, okay, I'll get them up, and went to pound on the door. And meanwhile, about from here to the wall away, about 6 feet away, the flames were fully up on the house. And so I got them up and got them out right away.
Madden says keeping on driving never crossed his mind.
I just couldn't. I saw people in need. It's part of our training as well. We help people as much as we can.
Firefighters honored Madden this morning with an award of merit. They say that 4 people and their pets are alive today because of his bravery and quick thinking. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
30 years ago this week, the Saskatchewan government passed Bill 38, a bill to protect human rights on the basis of sexual orientation. Jason Warwick spoke to 2 people who were involved in that fight.
Until 1993, there were no specific legal protections for 2S LGBTQ people.
There's all kinds of homophobia in our society.
That all changed when the provincial government amended the Human Rights Code. It followed a 20-year fight by activists.
The last 30 years have been a period of incredible societal change. Attitudes, it's day and night in terms of how attitudes have changed in Saskatchewan in terms of LGBTQ people. In the 80s, when I was on campus as a student, it was scary. It was scary to participate in LGBTQ events. It was frightening to come out to your family or to your employer. You could lose your job.
Bell says the legal changes were a step in the right direction.
The big thing is to change societal attitudes. That's where you want to go. However, to put sexual orientation in the Human Rights Code in 1993 was a step in that direction. It led the way to a change in attitudes.
Another Saskatoon resident who fought for the changes says she can't believe it's been 30 years.
It was a hard fight during those years, during that period of time, especially when the 92 to 93 period when the government was passing legislation. So it was really exciting. In fact, it was almost euphoric because suddenly we had rights, suddenly we were protected, suddenly we could be free to be who we were without fear. And that's a real big feeling.
Lodeman and Bell say there's been a lot of progress, but there is still a lot of work to do. They note that in the United States, there are hundreds of pieces of legislation aimed at rolling back these rights, as well as a small but vocal minority attempting to do the same in this country. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Planned Parenthood Regina is apologizing to the Prairie Valley School Division. This after a presentation to the grade 9 health class at Lumsden High School earlier this week. The presentation included information about contraception, consent, sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections. That wasn't the problem. The issue was some material that presenters left on a table for the kids to take. It had sexually graphic material that was not age appropriate. Planned Parenthood says it's sorry to put the school board in a difficult position. Education Minister Dustin Duncan has ordered schools to suspend any upcoming presentations with Planned Parenthood. The organization says it was disappointed to learn initially about that from CBC News. Opposition NDP leader Carla Beck says Premier Scott Moe needs to call a trio of by-elections. Right now, there are 3 vacancies in the Legislative Assembly. The government says Moe is committed to holding all 3 by-elections at the same time, but he's not sure when that will happen. According to legislation, the by-election for Regina Coronation Park must be held by August 10th. Beck says 3 constituencies are without representation, and that should be rectified. Bill C-18, which received royal assent yesterday, is supposed to help fund local news operations by making social media platforms pay for their content. But one of Canada's biggest broadcasters says it doesn't do enough. Bell Media has asked the CRTC to waive local news and Canadian programming requirements for its TV stations. It also wants to cut the portion of its revenues dedicated to Canadian programming from 30% down to 20%. Bell says its news operations lost $40 million last year. Last week, Bell announced it is cutting 1,300 jobs, shutting down 6 radio stations and closing foreign news bureaus. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are dealing with several injuries as they prepare to take the field in Calgary tomorrow night. Running back Frankie Hickson was injured last week against Winnipeg. The team signed Rod Smith to add to the roster. Smith was cut by the Green and White after training camp. He went home to Georgia and had been training and looking for work when the Riders called. Smith says the CFL is an adjustment from playing NFL and college football.
Field is way bigger. I don't think people realize that. Well, I know as a running back, I didn't realize that. The defensive line being a yard off the ball, it kind of affects the timing in the run game. So it's definitely a little different, but like I said, I learned a lot during camp. I learned the pace of the game, the preseason, playing in those games. I learned a lot in those games.
He was a guy we hated to let go during camp. I mean, it was one of those things where if we had a few more spots, we would have kept him. So we knew if we had an injury at running back, he'd be one of our first guys that we'd call.
Smith says he will be ready when and if his name is called, but it won't be this weekend. He's on the practice roster for this game. The Rough Riders face the Stampeders in Calgary at 5 o'clock. Both teams are 1-1.
It's hard to see yourself put in something you despise so much, you know. It really breaks your spirits, you know, and just watching that it's hard.
Coming up after the break, we have an exclusive look at a controversial tool of restraining young offenders. The wrap is still allowed in some provinces, used on kids as young as 14. CBC investigative reporter Jorge Barrera was given access to video that shows it is happening. That in-depth story after the break. Stay with us. When Canada changed its Youth Justice Act 20 years ago, one goal was reintegrating offenders. Experts say a key to that is how they are treated while detained. Tonight, we have an exclusive look at one controversial tool of restraint used on kids as young as 14. CBC investigative reporter Jorge Barrera has more on the wrap and a warning: you may find the content disturbing.
Lay down on the ground, put your hands behind your back, and do it now. Okay, are you guys ready?
This is video seen publicly here for the first time.
You wanted this, pal?
Of teens in Saskatchewan youth jails. Their bodies bound in a device known as the wrap. This was done to Matthew Michel on at least a dozen occasions, starting when he was just 14. Now an adult, he's seeing it for the first time.
What's it like to see this?
Shocking, honestly. It breaks you down mentally, you know, and physically and emotionally.
Several provinces still use the wrap.
And I don't want that to happen to other youth, you know.
The wrap is made by an American company, sold as a safe way to completely restrain individuals acting violently and dangerously. In Saskatchewan youth jails, it's only supposed to be used for an hour max at a time, unless under exceptional circumstances.
This is a free call from an inmate at Saskatoon Provincial Correctional Center.
The first time CBC News spoke with Michel, he was behind these walls of the Saskatoon jail, serving a sentence for assault.
Hello, Matthew?
Yeah, this is Matthew, yep.
He spoke about his childhood.
My grandma was basically my mother's figure and my father's figure at the same time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
She did what she could to provide for me. She either went to day school or residential school. I really never asked about that because, like, when she used to talk about her past, when she would drink alcohol, she would cry about it, you know?
Michel grew up in Saskatoon. He never had a stable home and suffered physical abuse as a child, according to his file. In youth detention, by the time he was 12, he says the rap left lasting psychological wounds.
I have a resentment towards guards or officers or staff from my experience of that. It made me distrustful towards anybody with authority. It messed me up psychologically, I know that for sure. Oh man, I can still taste the blood to this day, yo. But that's how I learned how to handle pain and hurt my own self. I used to bite my cheek or my tongue.
You guys are on me! Roll over, do it now!
This device should be burned and buried. That's what should happen to this device.
Gabor Mate is a world-renowned therapist who has deeply studied the impacts of trauma and childhood development.
I mean, what they're doing by treating people this way is creating the future drug addict and the future inveterate criminal. You could not create a better school for future antisocial behavior, or for mental illness for that matter.
Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick are the only provinces where the rap is allowed for use on young offenders. Manitoba used it 11 times from 2018 to 2023, and New Brunswick, 0. Saskatchewan says it does not currently track its use. CBC News obtained video from 10 incidents involving youth bound inside Saskatchewan facilities between 2009 and 2012, including 5 times in 2 youth jails. Michel was subjected to the rap. The incidents still haunt him today. Michel agreed to meet with CBC News on the last day of his latest sentence.
Yeah. I'm out of the correctional officially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it feel right now?
It feels wonderful. Out of being in jail for 16 months, you know? Feels good.
Straight?
Yeah. It looks different now.
Michel is 28 now. This time, he says he wants to stay out, build a life, and get into construction work.
This is the house I grew up in as a child. I have a lot of memories at this house here.
This is it, eh?
Yeah.
His childhood veered early through the steel gates of the youth correctional system.
It broke me a lot of times. It broke me a lot.
And the machine he says broke him was the rap.
And it strains your muscles and it feels like your muscles are tearing sometimes. Depends on how tight they put it on you. And it hurts.
He was put into the rap for the first time for over an hour when he was 14 years old.
Think of thoughts of suicide, things like that, you know? Because like that's how much pain you're in. You're like, kill me already, you know?
Physically, neurologically, psychologically, it's incredibly damaging. I think it should be completely outlawed.
CBC News shared videos of the rap's use on Michel with Senator Kim Paint, who is a prominent champion of corrections reform.
We know the damage can happen within, for some people, minutes, certainly hours. I think they're being used because people don't know about it, one, and when they do know about it, they somehow think those individuals are deserving of that kind of horrific treatment.
Michel suffers from mental illness and is sometimes afflicted by auditory hallucinations. One of the videos shows 15-year-old Michel put into the rap for hours. The recording begins on August 16th, 2010. After refusing a pat-down and swearing at staff, he was locked in his cell and began kicking the door. He then blocked the window with his mattress. Under Saskatchewan policy, the wrap should only be used as a last resort to prevent self-harm and violence against others. But here, Michel is alone and locked in his cell, when 6 staff members then enter to take him down. Shackled and handcuffed, Michel kept struggling. He was then bound in the wrap.
Just go through.
Staff carried him to another room.
Are you okay? Don't go to sleep. I want you to stay awake. I want you to stay awake. Because if I'm going to be awake, you're going to be awake.
Michel, bound, struggled hour after hour.
I'm just shaking him to keep him awake.
Michel began to break.
Fucking strangle me, fuck me, kill me already, fuck.
Subject is crying. That's the noise he is crying. Now he's settling.
I'm not fucking crying, man. I'm fucking trying to fucking stop myself, freaking myself to death.
You put yourself into this, Matthew. You really did. So just gotta settle down. You're okay. You really are. I'm checking on you.
A spit hood then placed over his head. Three and a half hours later, he's released from the wrap.
There we go. Thank you for showing me the proper usage of the cuff keys.
The Saskatchewan government investigated its use of the wrap on Michel. In a 2020 report, it said staff did nothing wrong and followed correct procedures under provincial policy in all 12 incidents.
These are videos that we obtain of you being put into the wrap. So have you ever seen these before?
Michel agreed to watch video of himself as a teenager bound in the wrap.
It's hard to see yourself put in something you despise so much, you know? It really breaks your spirits, you know, and just watching that it's hard.
The Saskatchewan government admits Michel was put in the wrap at least 12 times as a youth, once for headbutting a staff member. But Michel says it happened at least 50 times over several years.
You know what a good analogy is? Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Except these are kids. Kids. Traumatized kids. My heart is breaking. That's what's happening. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that human beings, children, are being trussed up like animals to be slaughtered.
It's something that traumatized me throughout my youth years and my adult years.
When you say traumatized, tell me what that means in terms of the wrap and you.
It means that it's something that played a big factor in my life that still haunts me to this day.
If you were never put in the wrap, do you think your life would have been different?
I believe, yes, it would be. I don't think I fully healed from that. I think they just broke me and I was left broken. And now I'm on the process of going on a healing journey, finding my life and building it, you know?
The growing season is underway on farms across the province, and it can be a stressful time for producers. Now, there's a new tool to help reduce that stress. The Do More Ag Foundation has launched Ag Talk, an online agriculture peer support platform. It's in partnership with Togetherall, a digital mental health service. The platform is free, anonymous, and monitored by mental health clinicians. Ag Talk looks similar to Facebook, where you can see what others have posted in your timeline.
You can comment on what people are posting, offer words of encouragement, or maybe some advice, some coping skills that you know, or maybe you're having a really hard day and you're overwhelmed and you're not comfortable talking to your family about it, but you're comfortable going on there and making a post. Even if you're not at a place where you're comfortable posting, it can be so beneficial just to join the community so that you can read what other people are sharing, and in doing so you can see that you're not alone and other people understand what you're going through.
Reynolds says the concept of Ag Talk has been in the development phase for the last 3 years. You can access the platform by visiting domore.ag.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now, wrapping up a really nice week. I would bet the farmers are probably pretty happy about how things have gone.
Yeah, especially with all the moisture that we've had the past few weeks in portions of the province. This weekend shaping up to be pretty nice. In fact, our current temperatures right now across the province sitting pretty through really all areas. You remember yesterday, northeastern Saskatchewan was a little on the cool side. We had a cold front moving through there, but things have rebounded quickly into the 20s. South and central especially feeling that nice warmth today. Not too hot, not too cold. 25 kind of seems to be the average that we're sitting around right now. Some showers and thunderstorms, though, possible a little bit tonight in south and central Saskatchewan. We're looking for a mostly clear night in the north. Tomorrow, we are watching a cold front from a low pressure system in Nunavut, which is going to be starting to drop through northern Saskatchewan. That could be bringing through some showers and thunderstorms to the north. Pop-up showers possible in south and central tomorrow, but we're not looking for any organized rain or storms or anything like that. And then as that front drops southward, Sunday is going to be a cooler day in the north, likely only mid to upper teens for daytime highs, but the south staying warm. A little bit of low pressure means we could see those showers and thunderstorms develop again Sunday afternoon, but again, very convective, just pop up in nature. Winds picking up a little bit in the north as that system slides through. That cold front, gusts to 40, and then all of us not really seeing any significant gusts heading into Sunday. And then we take a look at what's happening in the upper atmosphere. Our jet stream becoming a little bit more amplified. We do have a little bit of a ridge building into our west, and all of us going to be underneath the jet stream, meaning that warm air is going to be encompassing all of the province. In fact, as high pressure dominates the north next week, we could see temperatures getting into the low 30s, and that means heat warnings may return for that area, and that means an increase in the fire risk. We're already seeing that in portions of the north. Those greens and blues definitely starting to disappear even compared to yesterday. And we are starting to see drought conditions a little more widespread, especially in western sections of northern Saskatchewan. But after all the rainfall as of May, this is just as of May 31st, so before a lot of us ended up getting a lot of that rain, we are starting to see that drought drop off as well. Severe drought is in brown here, and that's really only limited to western sections, but you can see Alberta starting to see that drought increase. This is the outlook for the end of the month. Green means drought ends, and this is good for portions of west central Saskatchewan where we have seen prolonged drought. Drought is not changing in the brown colors here, but around La Loche is where we'll have to keep an eye out for possibly increasing drought over the next month. But in south and central Saskatchewan, a little bit of rain here and there means that we should be sitting pretty good over this next little while. Thunderstorms possible as humidity starts to pick up next week in south and central. We could be feeling into the low 30s in Regina and southern Saskatchewan. For Saskatoon tomorrow, again, we see that chance of some pop-up showers here and there. Throughout the next week here, we are looking at, this is kind of just pop-up thunder shower activity like we're seeing over the weekend. We're not looking for any real severe organized thunderstorms over the next week, but you'll notice that that humidity is definitely picking up, especially in the central part of the province, feeling into those low 30s. That's why we could see that thunderstorm activity develop, but staying right around normal. And with temperatures getting hot toward the end of the week here, Sam, we'll have to watch for heat warning criteria in around the Saskatoon area as well, as temperatures get warmer.
Here we go again.
That's right. Round two.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it for us this week. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to CBC Saskatchewan's YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news and weather tonight at 11. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great weekend.